I think the major cause for discrimination is, and this is kind of it has harsher connotations, but I guess the most underlying cause of discrimination is just ignorance, or in a lighter sense, lack of understanding. I'm a teacher. I believe that education is the key to fixing many of our social problems, especially as a social studies teacher, right? Through my studies and training and all the work I've done with history and social studies, it makes me aware of social issues, not just today, but how they've behaved in the past. And through what I've seen, usually when you have issues of discrimination and prejudice, it's an issue of ignorance, or it's an issue of not understanding one's culture or their background or even them as an individual. And then there's some smaller aspects that come into that as well. Some natural human tendencies, like we are resistant to change, right? Humans naturally are hesitant to change, drastic change. So whenever humans perceive something as changing their way of life, that can result in negative reactions, and that can turn itself into prejudice and discrimination. Another issue is that we as humans have a hard time thinking about how big everything is. We have a hard time thinking about the fact that there are like 345 million people in this country, right? There are billions of people on this planet, and there's just no logical, reasonable explanation as to how all those people act the same. That's just not true. But people have that natural tendency to do it anyway, right? We try to make those big things smaller. And one way that you can make a big thing smaller is by just, lumping it together as one thing, labeling it as one thing, right? So that just makes handling how big our world is easier.
I think discrimination exists because of fear, lack of communication, and a lack of trust. I think a lot of people don't trust each other. I think people are scared that, if I let this group get ahead, then it's gonna hurt me, or they don't want to hear what this person's gone through, because they say, well, I'm not going through that. Well, you're not going through that yet. And I think you really see that in places where people have lost their jobs. People who work for corporations that downsize, be it, Kroger, who've downsized, or IBM or Red Hat. One day this guy is sitting in an office doing computer programming stuff, making $80,000 a year, and the next day he's been downsized and he can't find a job, and now he's, blaming it on somebody else, a female or a black person or a Mexican person. And, they're scared that that's going to happen, instead of saying, no, you lost your job because of financial situations, or because maybe you weren't good at your job, or your company decided to fire you at $80,000 a year and go hire 3 people at $30,000 a year, so we get more work out of 3 people than we can out of 1. So, there's always that fear and that not understanding and that trust that causes discrimination. And, the only way to fix that is, again, to communicate and, be open about things.